I finally snapped and told my father's friend, a man who had treated me like a child for nearly a decade, that I hated him. It was a long time coming. Years ago, my dad met Harold through mutual friends, and they instantly clicked. I was 18 back then, a college student, and I never had a close relationship with this man. Yet, for some reason, he considered himself a family friend and always acted condescendingly towards me, like I was some silly kid. Every single time I saw him, I tried to convince myself it wasn't that bad. And every single time, he proved me wrong in under a minute. Harold had zero respect for my boundaries. He would say things like, "You're not even 19 yet, you're still a child." When I was talking to other people, he would seize any opportunity to mock me, my education, or my hobbies. He always noticed how much it annoyed me, and then he would deliberately ask in a joking tone if I hated him. My answer was always the same, no, but only for my father's sake. The final straw came one day during a barbecue. Harold interrupted the entire event to announce, "I really like you, even though you're a rude, stuck-up little girl." I was 20. I had been quiet all day, doing homework during the barbecue, and I always answered politely and calmly whenever spoken to. But even if I hadn't, he had no right to talk to me that way. After that incident, I started avoiding any event where I might run into him. Yesterday was my father's girlfriend's birthday. They organized a small lunch at my dad's apartment. I showed up with my fiancée and our 6-month-old son. Harold was there. I hadn't seen him in ages, but he immediately started talking to me as if I were that same dumb girl. Never mind that I'm now engaged, a mother, and 26 years old. During the party, I ignored his helpful advice about how I was too young to get married and raise a child. Thankfully, most of the other guests disagreed with him. My little one slept through almost the entire celebration. We have a crib set up in my old room. When he woke up hungry, I went to breastfeed him and stepped out for a bit. When I returned, I heard jokes and comments, all from Harold, about how I must be struggling if my son had been nursing for that long. He even interrupted a conversation I was having with one of my dad's other friends to start literally interrogating me about everything related to my motherhood. This from a man who doesn't even have custody of his own daughter. He kept making snide remarks about my age. I knew I had reached my limit when he asked if I had ever considered putting my child up for adoption. I picked up my son and told my fiancée we were leaving. We said goodbye to everyone except Harold. As we were heading for the door, Harold approached and asked, "Why are you leaving so soon?" I tried to come up with an excuse, but he kept pushing and trying to convince us to stay. After a brief back and forth, he asked his usual joking question, "Did I hate him?" This time, I said it. "Yes, I hate you. Can we go now?" He didn't say a word. We left. On the drive home, my fiancé told me he was proud of me. The next morning, my father called and said the exact opposite. We argued a bit, but eventually ended the conversation. I'm sure this isn't the end of it, but if there is more to come, it won't be because of me. This isn't my proudest moment, and part of me regrets saying it. But I am done with that man for good. I've seen a lot of comments. Let me address the most frequent questions. I don't think Harold is in love with me. Harold didn't tell me to give my son up. He asked if I had thought about it when I got pregnant. It was still a disgusting question, especially since he interrupted my conversation with another woman, a pregnant friend of my dad's girlfriend, who was just asking me about my pregnancy and birth experience. I don't like creating unnecessary drama. If I'm uncomfortable, I leave. If I don't like someone, I avoid them. Less stress that way. The argument with my father ended when I told him about the adoption comment. I don't think he understood that it wasn't the only reason I left, but it was the final straw. I don't need my father to stop being friends with Harold. He's an adult who can make his own decisions. I never told my dad I hated Harold because I didn't feel I had to like him in the first place. He's my father's friend, not mine. I've been distancing myself from Harold since I was 20, so over the last 6 years, I've only seen him a couple of times. My fiancé was on the other side of the room and didn't hear the comments. I told him everything in the car, and he's completely on my side. So, before we get to the update and find out what happened next, I want to hear your opinion in the comments. Do you think the heroine was right to straight up say she hated Harold? Personally, I think yes, she was completely right, especially since Harold had provoked her so many times before. And it's one thing to make comments like that to a child or a student, but it's entirely different when you're talking to a mother. It's incredibly unpleasant to be treated that way when you have your own child. What example does it set if you just shut up, stay silent, and keep enduring that humiliation? And for what? It makes no sense. I hope she and her father reconcile and that he fully understands her motivation. First update. Hello, everyone. I wasn't planning on writing an update at all, but I have a little free time, so I decided to share how things played out. Let's start with the most common assumption, that Harold is in love with me. I really don't think so. His comments always sounded annoying and condescending, but never sexual. Although, I'll admit, your comments did scare me a bit. I want to add that while I did feel a little regret about my words, I never once doubted that I did the right thing. I think the regret came from the fact that my 8-year streak of keeping the peace was officially over. It took some time to feel the relief. Honestly, I had wanted to tell him that since the barbecue incident. That was when he crossed over from the category of I don't like this guy, I can barely stand him for me. The day after my post, my father called Harold. When confronted about the adoption comments, Harold tried to spin it, saying he was just genuinely worried about me, that I became a mom too early and didn't know what I was doing. He even apologized to my dad. Yeah, I don't buy that for a second. The next day, my dad told me about this conversation. He said I should forgive Harold because, in his opinion, it was all a big misunderstanding. He also added that I should apologize for overreacting and saying I hated Harold over something so trivial. The thing is, my father had heard many of Harold's demeaning comments over the years. They usually happened during group conversations, so my dad just never paid attention. He rarely notices anything unless it directly involves or angers him. He'll most likely forget all about it until he gets mad about something else. Plus, we have very different ideas of what's offensive, so for him, it was never a problem. I told my dad I wasn't exaggerating when I said I hated Harold and that the adoption comment was far from the only reason. I listed almost every humiliating phrase an episode 1 could remember, including everything from the party. He didn't remember any of it. I made it very clear that I had hated Harold long before that day and that I had nothing to apologize for. Then I laid down the law. I stated that I would no longer attend any event where Harold was present. My father didn't have to stop being his friend or inviting him, but he needed to understand he couldn't count on me being there. I would ask in advance who was invited, and if he lied to me, I would simply leave. My father said I was being dramatic, but I reminded him that I had been avoiding Harold for 6 years, and no one had even noticed, so clearly it hadn't been an issue for anyone. Since the barbecue incident, I'd only seen him a couple of times, and only twice for more than a few minutes. Last week at the lunch, and once when I was pregnant. That clearly hadn't ruined my father's life. I'm not obligated to like his friends, just as he isn't obligated to like mine. We argued a bit more, but he eventually agreed to my terms. A few days later, we were talking about something else, and he casually mentioned that Harold was upset. I ignored it. I'm not planning to cut off all contact with my father. Yes, I'm fully aware that over the past few years, I've been on the verge of doing so more than once. But in the end, I decided it wouldn't change anything. Maintaining a relationship with him became much easier once I moved out. Now we only see each other a couple of times a month. It annoys him that I rarely call or text, but he stopped complaining. I don't see the point in completely cutting off someone who no longer has any real impact on my daily life. It's better to just remember what he did wrong when I was growing up and try not to repeat his mistakes while raising my own child. Although, to be honest, he's been on thin ice for a long time. He is not allowed to be alone with my son. I don't trust him to watch the baby for more than an hour. Back when I got pregnant, I started nudging him to go to therapy. Finally, in June, he started. His behavior towards me and my younger sister, who splits time between our divorced parents, has genuinely improved since then. I made it perfectly clear that if he quit therapy, I wouldn't allow him to see his grandson. This is the first time in my life my father has actually started changing for the better. It's hard to be optimistic, but I'm trying. And if I ever do decide to cut contact with him completely, it definitely won't be because of that damn Harold. So, That's the general update. I'm glad I don't have to pretend anymore. My relationship with my father is still strained, but I'm not going to dwell on it. My main priorities are my son, my fiancé, and my work. And that's not changing anytime soon. Second update. Last week, my family, me, my fiancé, and our baby went to visit my cousin for a few days. On the day we arrived, we all went together to pick up her daughter from school, my second cousin. For simplicity, I'll just call her my niece. When we got there, she was talking to a friend. She saw us, said goodbye to him with a hug, the horror, and ran over to us. My niece chatted with us for less than half an hour, then immediately switched her attention to my son. She was cooing over him, and then she took my fiancé's hand and dragged him over to show off our baby to her classmates. I stood next to my cousin, waiting for them. As soon as my niece was far enough away, someone called out to my cousin. It was the mother of that little boy. She had been sitting with him on her lap. The woman walked up to us, pointed a finger at my cousin, and declared, "You need to teach your daughter to behave properly. She shouldn't be talking to my son, and they certainly shouldn't be hugging. They're still too young for that." After that, she just walked out of the classroom without even waiting for a reply. Both kids are 5 years old. He had simply complimented her on her Shrek Crocs. Third update. I proofread someone's college paper for grammar, and now that person is blaming me because they failed. Since high school, I've occasionally checked my friend's work. I mainly just fix grammar, but sometimes I make minor edits. For example, I had a friend who didn't understand the purpose of paragraphs until college. I'm not a professional, but I did it well enough that friends recommended me to their acquaintances. I graduated college in 2019. I don't teach, I'm not a student, I don't take money for it. I do it just for fun, though less and less lately. I have a job, a husband, and a small child. Plus, almost all my friends graduated a long time ago. One exception was a close friend who recently decided to get a second degree. Last week, his class had to submit a major written project, and he recommended me to one of his classmates. That's how I met this guy. Let's call him Derek. He's 18, and from our phone conversations, he seemed like a calm, normal dude. Looking back now, I think he was just stoned. The paper was due Monday at 7:30 a.m., and he promised to send it to me at least 24 hours in advance so I could check the grammar. On Monday at 1 a.m., he finally sent the text. I held back my irritation and got to work because I promised. The paper was 3 pages long. As soon as I started reading, I knew at least half of it was written by our mutual friend, ChatGPT, and done so poorly that I almost instantly noticed the information was incorrect. It seemed he had confused 2 different people, which made the whole thing go off the rails, even though I only had a surface-level knowledge of the topic. Well, it was 1 a.m., and the grammar in that section was okay, so I left it alone. I only fixed the monstrously awful grammatical errors in the rest of the text. An hour later, I sent the edited file back. He didn't even thank me. Yesterday, Derek got his grade. He got a 2 out of 10, and the professor, according to him, said that was being generous. His reaction was a message along the lines of, "What the hell did you do? You were supposed to fix everything." I reminded him that I fix grammar, not factual errors. Both I and our mutual friend had warned him about this multiple times. But Derek kept whining in the messages, saying I should have rewritten the incorrect parts anyway, since I noticed. So this guy, who submitted a paper half-written by AI, is now blaming me because the professor saw right through it. Judging by his messages, he actually expected me to rewrite entire sections for him. The audacity. I get that students have it tough. I've been there, but I would never treat someone who's just doing me a favor like that. I'm seriously considering stopping proofreading for anyone at all. Fourth update. A short but relevant update about Harold. Hello, everyone. Damn, I can't believe it's been over a year since I wrote that original story. I meant to post an update sooner, but the last few months have been pure chaos. I've been raising a toddler, I got married, hooray, working like crazy, and rewatching Supernatural. In short, I've been busy. The open avoidance of Harold is working perfectly. My father respects my boundaries. Every time he invites me and my husband for lunch or dinner, I ask, who else will be there? If Harold is going to be there, he says so outright. So far, he hasn't lied once and usually doesn't push if I say I won't come. Since then, I've only seen Harold once at my father's birthday party a couple of months ago. Yes, I knew he would be there. My father promised to tell him not to talk to me. Plus, some of my dad's friends' kids are going to be there, and I used to babysit most of them. I hadn't seen them in ages. I love them much more than I hate Harold. I ended up spending almost the entire evening with my son and the kids. Harold didn't speak to me once, so it seems my dad kept his word. Although my husband and I caught him looking at us a couple of times, I decided to ignore it. I did, however, catch my husband looking back once. In that walking daydream, I managed to look downright threatening. I adore that man. Harold's girlfriend did talk to me, though. Yes, he has a girlfriend now. We crossed paths twice. First, she came over to coo my son and then said he needed a haircut. I already hate her. Then she approached me again and said, "You're shy, aren't you?" I said no. She laughed and added, Yes, you are shy." All in that tone people use to talk to 6-year-olds. I struggled to keep a neutral face. Otherwise, I would have told her I'm not shy. I just prefer to spend the evening with the kids because they're much better company than her and her boring boyfriend. So yes, judging by both our conversations, Harold's girlfriend is insufferable. In other words, they're perfect for each other. There's not much else to tell. My father broke up with a woman he was dating last year. Oh, that's a long story. Now he has a new girlfriend. She's not annoying or crazy. And honestly, I even like her. It probably won't last more than a year, though. My relationship with my father isn't perfect yet, but it's better. He has actually started apologizing more often. I don't know if it's the therapy or if motherhood has made me seem more intimidating, but I'm not complaining. And I have to admit, he's turned out to be a great grandpa. I'm really glad my father continues to respect my boundaries regarding Harold. I absolutely do not need that man in my life. To be honest, I'm quite content right now. My son is growing up happy and healthy. Part of me misses the days when he was a tiny baby, but I feel more proud of him every single day. Getting to know your own child is just amazing. All right, that's all for today, folks. Now it's your turn. Have you ever been in a similar situation where you held back for a long time and then finally said exactly what you thought? Or maybe you believe it's better to always stay polite. Discuss in the comments, leave a like if you found the story interesting, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories from the depths of Reddit. Thanks for watching, and remember, your peace of mind and your boundaries are something you have every right to, no matter what others think. See you in the next video. Take care.